be alive in this land of ours. Good to drive in this land of ours.
Hello, Canada hockey fans in the United States.
The Hockey Time Machine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hockey Time Machine. I'm Glenn Dreyfus. 25 years ago next month, the Whalers played their final game in Hartford. On to Howard Baldwin, who organized the ownership group that brought the Whalers to New England in 1972. And through the arrival of the Hows, the move to the NHL, and much more, he remained managing general partner through 1988. We spoke with him a few days ago. Howard, even Walter Mitty would be jealous of the life you've led. And even before the age of 30, you were captain of your high school hockey team. You joined the Marines. You had a tryout with the Detroit Tigers. But the first thing I want to ask you is about when you were business manager of the Flyers ECHL team. How did you end up as coach?
Well, that is a fun story. The coach was a fellow named Vic Stasiak, who was on the famous Uke line in Boston, and then he played in Detroit. And he came to us for, I'm sure it was meant to be a one-year gig. Lovely guy, loved him. And we batched it together, and I guess it was end of January or something that he said, we had a break in the schedule of like 5 days. And he said, I've just got to go back to Lethbridge to take care of this land I've wanted to buy forever, to make a golf course out of it or something. I don't know what it was. I really didn't even know where Lethbridge was. So he said, you take the team and run them through their practices. I'll give you the lists of what you have to have them do, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, but don't tell anybody because I don't want the Flyers to get mad at me, Bud Poyle. I said, don't worry about it. I'll coach, do whatever I have to do. But I wouldn't kid you. I was pretty nervous about it because I'd say 60% of the players were, 70% were a lot older than I was. So I did. That week I'd run him through the practice, and we had no glitches except for the first day when the wind sprints came about, and I started having him go up and down the ice. And after about 6 of them, the one player, Reggie Meserve, very tough guy who played in the Eastern League his whole career, and a very tough guy, bangs me on the rear end with a stick and said, no, I think that's enough of the wind sprints, don't you, Howard? And I said, okay, Reggie, that's good enough for me. But the crunch time came Thursday when a big blizzard was moving in. And somehow Bud Poyle called saying, he would call me like once or twice a week, just checking in, but he had no idea that Vic was gone. And he said, now, is Vic around? Can I talk to him? And I said, no, he's not here. He said, where is he? Well, I couldn't lie to him. I said, well, he had to go for an emergency back to Lethbridge. He said, what do you mean? Who's coaching? And I said, well, I've been coaching. He said, well, you tell Vic to call me as soon as he gets back. Well, Vic was due back Friday morning. Well, Friday, it was just a blizzard. And I'm thinking, so I called Bud up and said, look, Vic is not back. I don't know that he's going to get back. We got a game tonight against our arch rival, the Long Island Ducks, with John Brophy, and they were a tough bunch of guys. And Bud said, look, you two guys, you got yourself into this mess. You get yourself out of it. so you coach the team tonight. And I said, but I can do practices, but I can't coach this team. And he said, yes, you can. You're the coach. He hung up on me. About 45 minutes to an hour before game time, Dick showed up, thank God, and coached the team. But that was it. And Dick survived it. I survived it. And I don't know whether we won the game that night or not. It would be kind of fun to look that up. But that's the story.
And then you read about the formation of a brand new hockey league. What happened next?
My partner and good friend Johnny Coburn and I, we were just in the back office of this clothing store that he owned, and we saw the article and, gosh, let's look into this. And you know, this was like, gosh, it would have been 71, right around June of 71, right when the league was formed, officially formed out of Orange County. And so we called, information, got the number, and Dennis Murphy was the first guy I spoke to. And he, told us about the league. And I think they liked the fact we were in Boston because they felt that was obviously a great hockey market. And they liked the fact that I had worked for the Flyers, even though they had, really not clued in on the fact that I was ticket manager. So I didn't know much more than tickets. So, so it went from there, the dating game, if you want to call it that, went from there. And, we met Dennis, great guy. Gary Davidson's still alive. We just had dinner with him last night.
You not only become part owner of the Boston-based, as you mentioned,
right,
New England Whalers. The team wins the Avco World Trophy in your first season. What was that year like?
It was a really, there's no other way to put it other than a Cinderella year. Now, we had issues. There were franchise issues. Our franchise was well financed, and we did a good job in the marketplace. Jack Kelly did a brilliant job in drafting players. We had a good team, good solid team from top to bottom. So there was never really a doubt it was us in Winnipeg. So it was just the year really spoiled me forever, because when you have a year like that, you win everything, and then you expect to do that every year, and it doesn't work that way. But it was a great year.
You mentioned Jack Kelly. Obviously, you don't hold grudges, because when you went to college, Boston College, he cut you, and then you hire him.
Yeah, well, he didn't. We always joke about it, but he did not. He'll always say, I didn't cut you. I was going to keep you on the team. And technically, he's right. But I would have been like one of the last 2 or 3 guys, which would have been fun. But I just didn't have the discipline and the desire to do the kind of things that had to be done to play on the team. And it's probably one of the few regrets I have to this day. It would have been fun to play on that team. But when we had that meeting in his office, and I saw the care that he had for me and my feelings and all, it stayed with me forever.
After a couple of years, scheduling games at Boston Garden becomes such a headache. The Whalers can't even play all their games at Boston Garden. So you decide we have to have a city of our own. Why Hartford?
Yeah, and Glenn, to be clear, it was really after 1 year. Our first year, we played a split schedule. We did great in the Garden. We did not so great in the arena, Boston Arena. Second year, we had all our dates in the Garden. And we figured, okay, we're going to pick right up off the average that we had in the Garden the first year. Didn't work that way. The bloom was off the rose. It was a novelty the first year. And fans, we had a good group of hardcore fans, but not enough. probably one of the smarter things we did was we realized early on the second season that it wasn't going to work in Boston. And our financial partner, Bob Schmertz, a wonderful guy, was having some financial reversals. And he said, Howard, we got to solve this because, I have to get out. So that, coupled with we didn't build off that first year. We were in fact going in the wrong direction, even though the team was still doing well. So there's another newspaper story, but I read in the New York Times that the building manager in Hartford had just broken off negotiations with a guy named Charlie Finley, who you'll remember that name. They were going to put an ABA team in there. So I called Bill Lillyman up and said, hey, I see you're not going to make your deal with Mr. Finley. Would you like to talk to us? And he said, come on down. And that's what happened. I went down, show you how much we knew about Hartford. We chartered a plane from Boston to Hartford, which is less than a 2-hour ride. And when we got there, we met at the top of the Capitol Bar and Grill because the Civic Center wasn't built yet. They had the arena under construction, but they didn't have their offices there or anything. Met the building manager and a fellow from the Etna, Don Conrad, and we made a deal in an hour, within an hour to come there. And that would have been early December. And by third week in February, we had the first press conference. Pretty amazing.
For a group in Boston that treated you so poorly, is this right that they actually tried to use a Zamboni to block you from getting your stuff and taking it away out of the garden?
Yeah, keep in mind, the only people that treated us poorly were the Boston Garden manager. The fans were great. The media was very fair to us. We had no complaints other than there weren't enough fans. But the garden people busted our every chance they had. And we knew once it broke in the story, in the papers, our people were angry, our hardcore group of fans were angry. And we just said, let's just make life a little miserable for the Boston Garden because they had made it miserable for us. So there were like 6 games of rent that we owed. And we knew we had to pay it, but when the last game was played, we were going to load the trucks up and head to Springfield. We played the playoffs in Springfield. And when the trucks were all loaded up, they backed the Zamboni in the tunnel so you couldn't get cars out. There was a stalemate all day until Weston Adams Jr., I don't know if you remember that name, but he had to go home, and his car wasn't going to go home unless they moved that Zamboni.
And that is how great conflicts end.
Yeah, well, and we, of course, we got the trucks out, and the next day we paid the rent. So, case made.
So 2 ways I read that people would know that the Whalers were more than just a business proposition to you. And here's one. During a season, during the games, how many packs of gum would you go through?
Oh, gosh, you'd have to ask my wife, Karen, that question. A lot of packs. I mean, I went through a lot of them. I don't know how many, but went through a lot. And a lot of Diet Cokes.
The other way is because when the team didn't play well, one time you told your general manager, Ron Ryan, to, quote, start looking for new players. And another time you said, quote, any player not giving 100% effort on the ice at any time will be suspended and fined. Why did you care so deeply about the team?
Well, I love the team. And I don't recall some of that, but I probably did say things like that. I was young and there was tremendous pressure, and it would frustrate me with guys that were making 5 times what I was earning would, maybe take a night off or 2. But, you care because you love the sport. I'm competitive and you want to win. And, when you make the effort to do everything right for the players and the team, and it's not hard to figure who's working hard and who isn't. You tend to get ticked off. So that's what would happen. That's life in the fast lane.
For the 77-78 season, Gordie Howe comes to Hartford along with his sons Mark and Marty. So if you would tell us what the backstory was about their arrival.
Well, as you know, the Howes played for Houston. And Colleen Howe, Gordie's wife and the mother of Mark and Marty, was a manager and, of course, mother. And she was good, let me tell you. Colleen Howe was a great lady. She was a tough lady, and you had to negotiate hard with Colleen.
She was the family business manager, right?
Yes, she was. And the negotiations didn't go well in Houston. And so it was actually the middle of the season before we signed him. The owner of Houston called up and said, "Howard, they're all yours. I can't take it anymore. Just traded him to you." I said, "What are you doing Saturday morning?" I said, "You can't do that." And then hung up the phone, and then I get another call right away from Colleen, who was laughing. And she said, "Howard, we love you and we love Hartford, but we aren't going anywhere. We're under contract to Houston. We're going to stay out the year, and then we can talk." And I said, "Of course." And we did. We competed with the Bruins the Bruins had no intention of signing Gordie. They were really only interested in Mark. And we were going back and forth with Colleen. The final day was like 2 or 3 days in Detroit. And they finally said, "Okay, we're going to sign with you guys." That was a Thursday, and I said, it'll take a long time to get her to actually sign a contract. So I knew that the trick was to have the press announcement.
Leverage.
Yeah, well, I just said, "Colleen, let's get this announced. It's such a big announcement and takes the pressure off everybody." And thank God she agreed. So we announced it Monday. Now, I don't believe they ever really told Harry Sinden until maybe the last minute. If I really don't know. I wasn't privy to that, but I know the Bruins they always held that against us for years because they felt that they had the house. They were going to get Mark, and they didn't. We got him, and we got Marty, and we got Gordie.
A silly question, but how much did bringing the Howes to Hartford impact the franchise and hockey in the city?
It was huge. There's a part of me thinks to this day, Hartford doesn't really appreciate enough what they had. We had 2 All-Star games, WHA and NHL, 85, 86. You had the Howes there. You ended up Bobby Hull. People don't remember this, but the last game Bobby Hull ever played in the NHL was for the Hartford Whalers. And so you got a great hockey tradition there, and it solidified the team in the marketplace. To have an iconic figure, star, wonderful family like the Howes come there and play. Made Hartford a very credible, when I say major league city at the time, that's what it was.
Also in 1977, you take on this little side hustle as president of the World Hockey Association, and pretty quickly you engage the NHL in merger discussions. Several attempts come close, but don't get quite over the goal line. How come?
Well, we had to bridge a lot of emotional waters, okay? And the first round of meeting was in Montreal. And people forget the first round, we actually were voted in. And then the Hawks, is that what they are? The Hawks circled the wagons, and we were voted out in August. But we were voted in, the 4 teams that got in plus Houston and Cincinnati in June. And they were going to play in our own division with interlocking 12 times a year, 12 games total. And then the Harold Ballards and some of the Hawks rallied the troops, and it fell apart in August. We went back at it the year after in Detroit, and we came very close. But we knew then after Detroit, the second round, we could get this done. And we did get it done in the fall. But it was some battles.
After the merger talks broke down in March of '79, you're shocked. And what's more, you're fed up. And you say, forget the one league plan. And you'd always been a one league guy, but you say enough is enough. And yet by June of '79, Quebec, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Hartford are absorbed by the NHL. So what changed?
Here's what happened. It wasn't March. It was December of '78. And we had the plan of expansion. We had it all worked out. John Ziegler and his committee and myself and our committee were the three teams that got in. And they had the annual meeting like they did in those days down in Florida at the Breakers. John said, we're going to vote and get ready to come down so we can announce it. And I had the head of Aetna and the corporate jet. We were all set to leave at 8 the next morning. And I get the call at 8 the next morning and said, you're not going to believe it. And John was almost in tears. He said, you're not going to believe it, but the Hawks did their thing with Vancouver and Montreal, totally turning on we knew there were 3 votes we'd never get. Boston. Let me get it right now. We knew we'd never get Toronto. We knew we'd never get Boston. There was one other team that wasn't going to vote for it, but we thought we had Vancouver, Frank Griffith, and Montreal, Morgan McCammon. Well, they flipped the switch. And I may be a little wrong on the other 3, but I don't think so. And so that's when we had the press conference, and we're really mad. We said, okay, this is what they want. This is what they're going to get. And we're through, so, kind of like threw down the gauntlet because we were mad. Edmonton, when the franchises were mad. Well, it was that night that John Ziegler called me and said, can you get your guys back to the table? Because the fans in Winnipeg, literally drove down near the offices of Molson's Brewery in Winnipeg, and they fired rifle shots, pistol shot through the window of the brewery. And the guy that voted for the ownership voted not the way his owners wanted. He got fired. And so I said, John, I think we could hold them together. Well, of course, I knew I could hold them together. And then I got a call from the head of Molson's, Morgan McCammon. And he said, I really need you on this one. Maybe you could fly up here, meet with me, and we can tell you how much we support it. Because he was scared too, because he made the wrong decision for his company. He got caught up in the hockey war instead of the what's good business war, if you follow what I mean. And I'm sure you do. So then we got it done.
So the team gets rebranded in the NHL as the Hartford Whalers, and along with it, one of the best logo designs ever. And I don't mean in hockey, and I don't mean in sports. I mean one of the best logo designs, period. And you had a big part in making that happen. Tell us.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the credit to that logo goes to the designer, Peter Good, and our marketing head, Bill Barnes. And they worked hard on it, and they came to me and said, no, this is what we think is good. I mean, I really had, other than to say, at least the fact I got the fact you had a hell of a logo there.
Well, you also saw the H.
Yeah. We saw the H, you got that. And, it just was an icon. It still is, as you said. And I appreciate you saying that, an iconic logo. But I really want credit to go where it should go. And Barnesy and the designer, the artist get the credit. But it still sells a lot of merchandise in the NHL.
Since you mentioned Toronto's notorious owner, Harold Ballard, he was, it's well known, a fierce competitor of the 79 expansion. He attended the Whalers' first home game when they hosted the Leafs. He showed up, and you said at the time, quote, "If I knew he was coming, I would have taken him to dinner." Really?
Oh yeah, sure. But he was a character, and
You're being kind. You're being kind.
What's he gonna? He ain't gonna beat me up. I promise you that. And he was what he was. He was like a cartoon character. And when we played our first game in Toronto, I said to Jack Kelly, "We're going to go and watch this." And they, when you're the visiting owner or staff, they have seats for you. They didn't have boxes in those days. So we sat in the stands in the corner. But I looked behind me, and there's like a bunker, where you would shoot a machine gun out of. And that's where Harold Ballard and the little old fella, I forget his name, King Clancy.
Right.
They would watch the game. Okay. Now, he had been on record as saying Dave Keon was finished, and Gordie Howe was a bum, and he called me a mackerel snapper from Rhode Island or something. I don't know what the hell he meant. But anyway, we win the game 3-1. Gordie got 2 goals. Keon got 1. At the end of the game, I look up at that little box, and you could just see the top of his head, and I could see all the fans just yelling, screaming at him and calling him every name under the book. I just figured, well, payback's a bitch, Harold.
Well, for the record, when the Whalers played and hosted the Leafs, you won that game too. Mm. But I want to mention that game was played in the Whalers' temporary home, Springfield, Massachusetts. And so you said something I want you to reflect on in 1980 about the prior 3 years. We've had a roof collapse, a new building open up, a merger, and our first year in the NHL. I mean, Six Flags never had a roller coaster that wild.
It was wild, when you look back on it, with the roof collapse, and I was in Quebec. I got word first thing in the morning. And by the time I got back to Hartford that night, we had the dates all lined up in Springfield. Great credit to Barnes and Davey Andrews, the people that worked for me. So we never missed a beat. We were concerned, the league was concerned, because they knew if the Whalers folded or stopped playing, the league was in real trouble. And but we never missed a beat. I mean, it was the Hartford situation, Glenn, was a perfect storm, as I call it, of corporate community coming together with the business community, coming together with the city, the state, and creating an environment that's perfect for a team to succeed. And that's what it was. Simple as that.
When I talked to John Forsland, who was your PR and media director, later broadcaster, he mentioned that the Whalers were really a model franchise in terms of interacting with the community. Do you recall it that way?
Yeah. We made a huge push in community relations. We did 300 or 400 events a year. And it was the smartest thing we did, because after the 79-80 year, in that first year in excuse me, in the NHL, we made the playoffs. Then we went 4 years where we were bad. And we never dropped below 73% paid capacity. And the reason was plain and simple. We became a fixture in that community. Went to events, participated in anything and everything we could. And so we were really like, we were just a community-owned team, even though the community didn't own us, they did.
In 87, you fully come out of the doldrums. The Whalers win their first and only division title. What are your memories of that year?
Really, the 85, 86 year for me was way more exciting. First of all, I met my wife, Karen. Okay, you saw her on this Zoom one day, I think. She was working for All-Star. It was a big All-Star game in Hartford. And we actually, when the game was played in February, as I recall, end of Jan, like first, second week of February, we were again struggling to make the playoffs. And then after that All-Star game, it just, everything turned around and we made the playoffs, and it was like everybody was so excited. And then we beat Quebec in the first round, and we won 7 games against Montreal in the first round. They actually had a parade in the city. Claude Leroux's wife said, he had like 9 Stanley Cups in Montreal. He said, I've never known a team to have or city to have a parade for a team that lost in the second round of the playoffs. The next year, we just followed it right up with the division championship and didn't do as well in the playoffs. But for me, of the NHL years, that 85, 86 was the best one for me.
Sports is weird, isn't it? You finish 4th in the division, you barely squeak into the playoffs. Then you have that magical upset. The next year, you win the damn division, and then you get knocked out in the first round.
That's right. Harry Neal, who came to coach us when we were in the WHL, love Harry. And we had not a good season. Okay. He came in, I think, like in the middle of the year. It wasn't his fault. We caught fire in the playoffs. I think we made the finals. And then we lost. And I remember waking up about a week after, and there was a column in the Hartford Current quoting Harry and saying, I hope Howard realizes the regular season doesn't lie. And in playoffs, you can catch lightning in a bottle one way or the other.
Yeah.
And you've seen it happen in all your years. And I've seen it happen, not just in hockey, but in baseball, or really doesn't happen in football because it's just a one-off, but you know what I mean.
Was the Whalers executive committee part of the reason you ceded control in 1988?
No, not at all. Let me give you in 1988, the corporate community came to me and said, Howard, we think we have done the job here. We're making money. And we never, it's not in our portfolio, or whatever you call those business models for these insurance companies and United Technologies and the whole hockey team. They felt their corporate conscience were clear. And they said, we want you to find us a buyer. Now, I was very consistent with them. I said, of course I will, but I urge you not to sell the whole team. I urge you not to lose control of franchise movement. You just never want to lose that control. And they didn't listen. That's the only area where I was upset with them, because they figured, okay, Conrad and Gordon are going to buy the team. It's theirs to do with whatever they think is right or wrong. And it was a huge error, because you know what happened. Individuals don't have the same corporate conscience that the corporate community did. And within 10 years, the team was gone. And then it was a great crime.
Which leads me to my last question. You're a Hollywood mogul, and so I'm going to use the word zeitgeist. And the Hartford Whalers somehow have remained in the zeitgeist. And how much does that surprise you?
Well, I'm not sure what zeitgeist is, okay?
Okay,
But
let's just
it's like,
say it's in the public consciousness. You're still seeing starlets wearing Whalers T-shirts and the team in Carolina, which I think is an obscene thing, but they decided to wear the Whalers sweaters, and the merchandise sales are still ridiculous. It's the biggest selling merchandise team for a defunct team. It's bigger than the Brooklyn Dodgers, for goodness sake.
yeah, and it's so nice to hear you say that. And that is true. And it's because I think it's because it was truly a community team. And that was the culture of all of us. The corporate community they were wonderful owners, and they made the mistake at the end. But that franchise, when the roof collapsed, they never batted an eye. They were right there with the backing. And when we did the merger, they were right there with the backing. So, and the fans never dropped. When we went to Springfield, they all followed us up there. Most of them did. So it became part of the fabric of the community. And when you become the fabric of a community, you're going to succeed. Saddest thing in the world was them ever letting that team leave. It never should have happened. The governor should never let it happen. The corporate community should never have let it happen. But you didn't have the leadership then. That was the problem. And the owner of the team didn't really want to keep it there.
When you think of Hartford Whalers today, when somebody mentions those two words, is there a particular game or individual or event that pops to mind first?
Gee whiz. Not necessarily. I mean, the two great years were the first year and the 85-86 year. And really going to the seventh game of Montreal. Those were the two most significant moments on the ice. But when I think of the Whalers, I think of what I told you about everyone coming together to make something work. And in a small community like that, that's the only way it can work. Only way it can work is everybody coming together. And they let go of that. And they forgot that. And now they don't have a team. And it's a crime because the people there deserve a team. It's a beautiful community. Lots of wonderful people. They deserve a team. But in order to get that, you got to bring together what we had in the early 70s when we moved the team there. And you got to keep it like that. And then it'll be the greatest gift, as Randy Quaid said in Christmas Vacation, it's the gift that keeps on giving every year. And that's what it should be. The team should be that.
Howard, Owen Canfield wrote this about you in the Hartford Courant when you stepped aside as managing general partner of the Whalers. Quote, Baldwin did 1,000 things that smaller, envious men wish they had the brains and the nerve to try. Not a bad send-off.
Nah, he was a great guy. Not just because he said that. He was just a great lover of sports. And who's kidding who? Being involved in sports, it's most people's fantasy. I mean, who doesn't read the sports page? And so to be able to get involved and do the kind of things we did, well, it was a privilege.
Howard, the privilege was entirely ours that you spent more than a half hour with us today talking. We can't thank you enough. We really appreciate it.
I love being with you, Glenn. You stay there. Stay well, will you? Stay in touch with me.
Our great thanks one more time to Mark Howe, Pat Pickens, Chuck Caton, and to Howard Baldwin. Instead of our usual so longs, we'll leave the goodbyes to Kevin Deneen, on the occasion of the last game in Hartford Whalers history, April 13th, 1997.
It's been my pleasure to be associated with you, the fans, for your support and the enthusiasm you've shown this building. There's none other. And on behalf of all the players that have left Hartford and the guys that are sitting on this bench, we just want to say thank you from all of us. God bless, and thank you very much.